Hello and welcome to this series of young people in market research. It's fantastic to be joined by Eliza, Hope and Skylar. So if you guys can introduce yourselves, first of all, I'll kind of go with ladies first. And Eliza, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Eliza and I'm working at Visionslive with Jack.
Awesome.
Yep.
My name is Hope. I am just about to finish my master's in market research and consumer behavior strategy at Instituto Empresa in Madrid. I'm American, but I've been living in England for the past 2 years, so that's where I hope to go back to and pursue my career in market research.
Awesome.
Good. My name's Skylar. I am a classmate of Hope at IE Business School, doing the same master's in market research and consumer behavior. I'm also American, and I guess no real plans yet globally or what region I want to end up in, but I'm open.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I suppose first of all we'll start generally. You know, we're here today to talk about why there's a kind of lack of young people in MR in the industry. So, you know, I'll throw it open to everyone. Does anyone have any ideas about, you know, barriers as to why that might be?
Sky?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I have a number of different, I guess, reasons that I came up with personally, and I'd love to hear you guys' feedback on it. I think the first one for me is inherent in the name itself. Market research has, I think the word research has certain connotations attached with it that are very much academic and very much place it into a specific type of category. Now, whether that's true or not, I guess isn't necessarily the point. I saw an interesting quote that said that researchers are seen as the scientists in the field of business. And I think that, you know, a scientist isn't as sexy as other industries in business, and it's not as flashy, and so I think that's primarily the driver for me.
I think you're right, Skylar, but I think that our generation, kind of the millennials, everyone is talking about it, and we are very used to doing things. You know, we want to post something, we can get right on our computer, we can blog away, we can put content out there, we're doers. And I think the market research industry is moving the way of being more focused on not just the research side of things, but also on creating insights and providing recommendations that can really drive tangible change and action within the businesses they work with. I just don't know if that has actually been clearly communicated to the people in our generation, that it's not actually just sitting there and looking at numbers and getting research. You're going to be doing things. You have really a great opportunity to understand what change needs to occur and to make change occur. And I think that kind of maybe that disconnect between our desire to be able to get out there and do things and make change happen in the world, and kind of the market research world maybe not as clearly communicating that you are able to do that from a market research role. I think that might be one of the reasons as well.
And following on from that, Hope, what do you think then would be the best way as a young person? Like, what attracted you to the industry? What was the best way, do you think, of best communicating how the industry really is?
I mean, I think the scope of those kind of awareness raising communications and things like that is relatively limited. I think that personally the reason I got into the industry is because I am a nerd and I actually like sitting there and reading research reports and kind of looking at the different insights. But you know, I have a natural inclination in my head to kind of automatically start taking that to the next step. What does this mean? What can we do better? How can we move things to the next kind of area that they need to be within whatever kind of study the research report is talking about. I think that in terms of kind of raising awareness, I don't necessarily know that just putting out kind of an advertising or communication campaign, I don't necessarily know that that's going to be more as effective as maybe kind of getting the major research organizations together and making sure that when they do put out press articles and when they do kind of do these big reports that get out there and get media attention, focusing a little bit more on the second half of the research world, which is insights and recommendations. So making things a little bit more tangible and focusing less on just kind of the data, the methodology, and more on where does this take us now.
I mean, I couldn't, just to add on a little bit, I couldn't agree more with that. And I mean, I think, interestingly enough, some of the same reasons why I chose to pursue this master's, reasons being essentially that market research very much functions as the foundation for most business practices. Without a solid understanding of the marketplace, your consumers, your competition, you know, you might not be successful. And I think that, as Hope was saying, this foundation isn't always maybe translated, or we can't, or it's not always clear maybe that all of the work that you do in gathering data and analyzing the data will then be generated into actionable, I guess, insights.
Exactly.
And, I think it's the perceived lack of actionability maybe that allows some students to see it more as a scientific field.
And I'm aware, Skylar, that you're doing, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're doing the only market research master's course in Europe. So, you know, this whole awareness, it doesn't even seem to be much in universities or the general curriculum. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think our program's interesting because it combines market research with consumer behavior, and I think that was a big attraction for some of the kids in our program. But there's not too many other programs that are very much specialized in market research. I was thinking a lot about maybe why that is, and obviously I've noticed that there's been a recent influx in higher education programs, and I think that was a function of the recession, the global recession. People were turning back to school, and so what do you do after a bachelor's? You're not likely to go get another one, and so you're seeing this proliferation of these one-year master's programs, and so I think that that's an opportunity to expose. I think that's maybe one of the best values of this program, is that it was a brief exposure, and then you can take what you've learned as a foundation and go along your way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What was your experience, Hope? I mean, what did you study, and how did you end up kind of getting into market research?
I was a sociology and an economics major in university, and I think that there is obviously a fair amount of overlap between sociology and kind of what we do in market research. For example, I had courses like survey writing and statistics for professionals and population tracking and things like that, ethnography. I had those in my sociology course. That said, the reason I got into this is because of my work experience. I worked in advertising and branding before, and I was using a fair amount of market research when it came to kind of developing the communication strategies and the branding strategies when we were making recommendations for our clients. And I found myself frequently wondering answers to questions that they hadn't asked, and I kind of realized that was the way I wanted my career to move forward. I will say, however, I'm not going into a field of pure market research after this. I'm going to be going more into the side of strategy and analytics. And one thing I just kind of maybe occurred to me when you were speaking, Jack, is you said you didn't have a market research module when you were at university. That's true. But I really do think that many of the tools that we use in market research you do get through many other programs. And I think maybe this begs the bigger question. What is market research, and what are we trying to promote awareness about, the field or the name market research? Because I do think that there are a lot of job descriptions and a lot of areas within businesses, such as analytics, such as strategy, such as insight, all these kind of data analytics jobs that are coming up. Those are all within the broader realm of market research, and I think maybe it's just a question of, I don't know, as market researchers, maybe kind of relaxing our definition of what market research is and expanding it to take in kind of some other areas of the world and of the business world, or, I don't know, maybe working with other areas to try and tack a market research name onto jobs such as analytics jobs. I don't know. I think there's a lot of market research going on, and I think that as a practice, it's growing. I just think maybe the name market research is dying, but that's my perception of things.
I think it's a really good point, though, that like there's so many different areas to it, and there's so many different, you know, students coming from particularly the social sciences. Like I've got a background in psychology, and it's very intuitive when you've studied a little bit about, you know, understanding how people behave. But I think because there's so many different aspects to market research,
Exactly.
you know, students don't understand that they're doing degrees that, because they don't understand the industry, they don't, you know, fully understand that their skills are really, really valuable for this industry. So I think just that knowledge is not there, and because there are, so many different, I mean, qualitative and quantitative research, and within that, you know, hundreds of different areas, that they are really, really valued. And I think also Skylar pointed it before when we were discussing, you know, our generation, technology and all that is so intuitive, and those skills are incredibly valuable. You know, we have a lot to contribute in that way, which I think people don't realise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a frustration to me that Eliza was a good example of that. You know, she came on board, and suddenly it was like, wait, psychology is such a good fit for us personally because we do Qual research, and that's about how delving into how people think. And it was like, I wasn't even aware when she first joined, and I don't think, if we're being honest, she was aware either. And we kind of like, hang on a minute, this is like a really nice fit. Yeah, you know, we've got arts degrees here, at least in the UK. I'm pretty sure it might be a global issue. Arts bachelors, but and there's not a lot of jobs out there. Yet the market research industry, I mean, I remember when I first joined, and my boss said to me actually that market research doesn't do too bad out of the recession because if people aren't spending, people need to know why they aren't spending. So there seems to still be kind of positions out there in the market research industry, and it just seems crazy to me that we have guys getting really great degrees, you know, humanitarian degrees and you know, psychology degrees, thinking about the way the mind works, and they're not being kind of at all channeled into market research.
Right.
But I suppose it's interesting to turn that into a question. Where does the where does the responsibility lie? Does this lie with the universities to kind of take it upon themselves to introduce this into the curriculum, or does it more lie with market research agencies who should be present at these kind of careers fairs? Because I personally never see them there. I'll throw that one out there.
I think it's probably a combination of the both. I think it's very much, to Hope's point, it's very much about building a level of awareness and trust within the industry. So agencies could theoretically go to job fairs and explain what a daily routine would be, and kind of knock off this crusty image that people have concocted. If that's, you know, a barrier, I guess I'm assuming that other people see it in the same way, and really translate, you know, what the skills that you've learned, you know, how they can apply and how they can help understanding. To me, and this maybe sounds radical, it could just be the name.
I completely agree, Skylar. I could not agree more.
Understanding or marketing knowledge, something that's more inclusive and can capture the people that you just talked about in the liberal arts that excel in analytical thinking and critical analysis and you know, things like that. Those very much do translate to this industry, but the name might be preventing that connection.
So funny, Skylar. I mean, I could not agree with you more. As you were speaking, I was literally thinking, they've just got to change the name, because it's genuinely just that research. And when I was saying, should we relax the barriers of what market research actually means and consider maybe positioning ourselves not as market research, but as kind of knowledge generators or action drivers or people who are able to inform strategy. I mean, that's really what we are. And I think it's about pulling out the parts of market research that resonate with the younger generations, and just honestly, it just needs a brand repositioning. It really just does. I mean, it's positioned for an older generation, and market research just needs to position itself in a way where it is more attractive to the younger generation and more attractive to the people who are dealing with those younger generations, including universities and master's programs and things like that. Market analytics, that's what we do. I mean,
Do we just need to do a bit of market research about it, or?
No, we need to do no market research about it. We need to do marketing.
I was kidding. I can help myself. I'd like to ask Hope a question, and that's we were asking this question about people getting into the industry, but how about retention within the industry? Because young people retention. I've heard some statistics. I can't remember off the top of my head, but so a lot of people come in, but then, well, not many people come in, but then those that do, kind of a lot leave as well. And you just said yourself that you're repositioning yourself as well. So I'd be interested to get your thoughts there.
Again, I think that might have something to do with the comment that I made previously about younger people wanting to have a hand in the action. We're action junkies, at least me personally, I am. I like to see things get done. I want to see tangible results, and I want to know that I had a hand in making and creating those. I don't want to paint a broad brush stroke and say everyone in our generation is this way, but the people who I've come in contact with who are my friends, they do seem to be more inclined that way than maybe people in my parents' generation. And I think that retention might, as I mentioned previously, focus more around putting more emphasis on the insights, recommendation, and driving action side of the market research industry. I mean, obviously, the kind of need to sit back and do your research and look at things and analyze, that's never going to go away, and that's always going to be important. But I think that that whole process becomes significantly more meaningful, more motivating, and more exciting when you do know that you have some ownership over it. Allowing people autonomy over kind of the insights they're making and the projects they're creating, and the ability to keep their hand in it, I think that would help a lot. But again, I know market research agencies work on a consulting basis, so it's a difficult one. I don't really have the answers, I guess.
I think actually, it's on a slight side note, but I was just find it interesting with both, well, you, Hope, and Skylar, that you have this educational background, obviously, in market research, because when Jack and I have been speaking to almost all the market research professionals that we've been speaking to the last couple of weeks, and there's this trend that they've just fallen into the industry. They were studying things completely and utterly different, and that's the same, for me and Jack. So I just find it interesting, especially for you, Hope, that's worked, obviously in the field a little bit and dabbled in it. How do you feel that educational background, has that helped you?
Anytime you go back and get a master's, you're able to kind of tighten up your skills and learn both the theoretical, the kind of the more theoretical side of things, and learn kind of from the ground up how to do things, what the industry best practices are, what different tools are out there. I mean, I know on our course we've had a lot of kind of work on different theories, and our course has been really a hybrid of many different things, including not only market research, but psychology, marketing, business strategy, because it really did take the view of, okay, market research is half the puzzle. You're going to need to learn how to apply these insights as well. So I think from that perspective, it has been hugely helpful. I mean, I didn't know 100% of the things that I now know coming out of it, because, you always learn new things when you do something, and I think it's been really helpful. Whether or not it's necessary, I don't think it's necessary to get a master's in market research to go work in the market research industry. I think that it's helpful.
Do you think it's put you at an advantage, though, next to your peers that maybe wouldn't have that background, or you think you can learn it on the job anyway?
You can learn it on the job. I mean, it's given you kind of a head start, I suppose, but if somebody you're going against is smarter and hungrier to work, it doesn't matter if you have a master's. They're going to have the advantage in the long run.
This conversation reminds me of the first conversation I had with Skylar, where I started talking to him, and I'd been in the role for about a year then, and I was like, man, this guy knows a lot. He knows way more than I did before when I started, And it kind of took me aback, and it got me wondering that too. Maybe, but like you said, it's the basis that it gives you, isn't it? It's the foundation, and after
it's the foundation, but it's all about how you apply it moving forward, in my opinion.
But to me, that's the interesting part, is that, I think market research is there's this huge entrepreneurial spirit in America, and definitely in Europe as well. And market research can easily be overlooked in the process of creating a business or doing anything like that, but it's incredibly crucial to the success. And so it's just, I think it's finding these overlaps in between whatever the end consumer, who would, I guess, be individuals, whatever their goals are in the career, and understanding how market research can help them achieve those goals. When I was looking at this program, I had studied political science at Michigan, and I was speaking to the dean of the program, and he basically made the link between political science and market research, which I hadn't been able to do on my own. And it's very obvious to me now, but at the time, he had said, yeah, obviously politicians need to understand their constituent base and need to, to better represent their constituents, in a democracy, I guess. And so that kind of was a selling point, and it's very much, I guess it might need to be more personalized, and that's how you can communicate these types of insights that you can gain, I guess.
Mm. It must be really, really interesting on your course. You're mentioning like there's, about 50 students studying on your program, and having students from all different countries and so many different educational backgrounds. It must really bring, are a lot of people planning to stay on in the field and get like work in market research, or is there a diverse range of sort of occupations people are going into?
The professor actually just asked us that question to kind of gauge.
Yeah.
And there was 3 people that raised their hands. And I think that's it actually caught me off guard, and was very interesting. And I think like conversations like this can help get to the root issue of that, but I don't think I have one specific answer for why. But it's not necessarily an encouraging sign to see that low of a response rate.
So 3 people said that they would like to continue into market research. Did I understand that?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Out of how many?
54.
Wow. That's low. So why do you think that? Just they thought that the skills they picked up were better served somewhere else, or they didn't enjoy what they learned?
I don't know. Hope, what do you? I don't think it's that they didn't enjoy what they learned, but a lot of people are taking the skills and then applying it to either what they were doing previously, or to kind of set off on a new career path where they can use the foundation in a different capacity.
I think that's exactly it. I mean, I'm not planning to go into market research, but the roles that I'm looking at are all very heavily grounded in market research, but there's just not the name market research attached to it. They aren't market research consultancies, they're within organizations, kind of doing business intelligence and strategy, and I think that I guess I would classify that as market research, because you're spending a large portion of your job time understanding the market and doing analysis and using different market research techniques. The only difference is you're doing them A, within an organization, and B, you're doing them with the goal of creating actionable business recommendations. I would classify that as market research, no.
But were you one of the 3 then, Skylar, that put up your hand? Are you planning to...
Oh, it's the key question.
No, to be completely honest, well, it's a difficult question for me to answer, because I completely agree with what Hope just said, because a lot of the roles that I'm applying for, I would very much consider market research, or have a very high percentage of the daily doings in market research, but they're not listed as such.
Right.
And so I don't know. I guess I don't know how to answer that question. Technically I am, but not in my opinion.
No, technically you're not, but in your opinion you are. They're not listed as market research.
True. I've confused myself.
But you're doing it.
No, there you go then. That's like a great example of what we were talking about before, right? Like, maybe actually what you want to do is very market research, but there's just not the job titles out there to compel you to go and apply for a market research position.
Essentially, and this again is just my personal opinion. I think that, you know, one of the things that we've been talking about is maybe the general understanding of how you can use this research that we can conduct. And I think one of our professors really harped on and encouraged us to become better storytellers. And I think that, I don't know if it's just me or my peer group, but I think that it's a more creative generation, the millennials, and so there might be ways to incorporate more creative techniques into hard data, and I mean, there's no reason that those should be mutually exclusive, in my opinion. And I think you can see that with certain strategic consulting firms who are obviously using a lot of market research, but are putting a more creative spin on it and differentiating themselves in that capacity, and that's very much appealing to youth.
So true. No, I completely agree. I was thinking the other night, in another life I was a detective. I mean, because that's what market research is. You are looking for clues, you're looking for insights, you're looking for answers, and at the end of the day, you are putting those together and creating a story and creating a case, just like a detective. And I think that it's all about communicating that side of things to people in our generation and less kind of just focusing on the old name market research. It sounds very, I don't know, what's the word, sterile? That sounds very sterile.